Hi, my name's Andrew Watts from the University of Exeter, and I'm going to talk to you about plastics, chemicals, and food webs. So, as Heather has already mentioned, plastic forms most of our marine litter that is getting into our marine environment. And this is just a few examples of plastic, things that we use in our everyday lives, plastic bottles, bags, polystyrene cups, also things that last a little bit longer, like toys and all of the technological advances that has come about by plastic. We also put plastic in our face washes. Here's a couple of examples of products that have plastics in them. Also, as Hans has also mentioned as well, plastic is getting onto our beaches in our marine environment. Here is a bottle top, which I found on a beach in the UK, squashed in between a couple of pebbles. And we also know that they are being ingested by seabirds and being entangled by other animals as well. But also it doesn't stop there. It's not just about large pieces of plastic. It's also about the small bits of plastic, the bits of plastic in face washes, as I said, but also this big plastic is also breaking down into something that we call microplastic. Now, Myra, my colleague, is going to be talking to you about how this happens in the next talk, but I just want to give you the final examples of microplastic. Now, these are some microplastics which I have blown up on a microscope. This bar here is about the thickness of a human hair, so you can tell actually how small they are. And they come in various shapes and sizes. So you've got these ones here, which are nice and long and really rough. You've got these ones, which are nice and round. These two come from face washes. But then also you've got this thing that's called secondary microplastic, which is the microplastic that has been broken down by this larger plastic. And here's a couple of examples of plastic like this, and even smaller. This is polyamide, that one. However, plastic is not just plastic. It's not just the polymer that they make the plastic out of. So, for example, PVC, 50% of it is plastic, but 50% of it is other chemicals. Now, the manufacturers put chemicals into plastic to create different properties, so making it bendy, making it rigid, making it see-through, different dyes that they have in. Now, because they're putting this in, and it's not forming the backbone of the plastic, these also will leach out when they get into the seawater. So, for example, we have dyes and stabilizers and plasticides, all the technical names for these chemicals which are coming out of these plastics into the marine environment. And we've done some studies at CleanSea to look at the rate of these chemicals coming out of these plastics. And these are then getting into animals and having various harmful effects. But also, we're not just getting chemicals coming out of the plastics, we're getting chemicals coming onto the plastics. So we're having things like persistent organic pollutants. We are having pesticides, PCBs, chemicals like that are absorbing onto these plastics. Now, these chemicals are floating around our marine environment anyway, but they're floating around in a very dilute form. Now, as plastic passes through these chemicals, the chemicals are attracted to the plastic, taking these chemicals further away from the point of origin. We've also seen bacteria and other things like that attaching to chemicals and taking those to places where we wouldn't see them in the water or in the sediment. This then means that we're moving pathogens from one place to another. These are getting consumed by animals that we are then consuming or other animals are consuming, which I'm going to talk about in a second. therefore creating other issues, not just of the plastic. So at CleanSea, we took a multi-organism approach. We looked at some animals and we looked at some plants to look at different aspects of the effect that plastic is having. So we've started with the lowest level of the food chain, the macroalgae, and we were looking at the effects it has on production, and Myra is going to be talking about that in a second, about uptake in things like fish and seabirds. And I quickly want to just talk to you about this term called trophic transfer. So this is the transfer of plastics from one organism to another. So it's not that the crabs, for example, here are consuming plastic from the environment. They're actually consuming it from these mussels. Now, mussels are filter feeders. Therefore, they can consume a huge amount of water and anything that's in there. And we have found that plastics can stay into mussels for over 2 months, residing in their tissues. And we've shown that they get into crabs as well. So here's an example of a little microsphere attached to the inside of the crab gut. These are staying in there for over a month. Also, what we saw was when we actually fed them mussels with fibers in them, so from fishing rope. What you can see here, this is the rope fibers that we put into the food. These are the rope fibers that we got into the gut, out of the gut, and these are the ones that came out of the fecal pellets. So you can quite easily see that these plastics are actually degrading actually in the animal. Now, this is not anything that we knew before the CleanSea project. This is a brand new piece of work that we've found. But also, very quickly, what we found is that there is not just the root uptake of feeding, but we were finding plastics on the gills of these crabs. So crabs take in water like mussels to breathe through the base of their legs, and they're actually filtering plastics out. So as we are looking at solutions and looking at uptake routes of plastics into animals, we need to consider the whole biology of the animals. So here I'm going to finish and pass on to my colleague Myra, and she's going to be talking a little bit more about this kind of degradation in the environment and its effects.